So, dear community, so let us enjoy the sounds of the bell. One sound of the bell. Let us feel our body expanding and contracting. Our belly rising and falling with an in-breath, with an out-breath. Feeling the sensations circulating in our body. Noticing if there's any tension, any agitation, any restlessness. Simply smile to them and allow them to go down to our legs, to our feet, and into the ground. Smile to ourselves, to our body, smiling to these tensions and tightness and restlessness that are there. Let us allow the sounds of the bell to come in. To touch calmness, peace, to allow healing to take place in every cell of our body. So, dear respected teacher, Thai, and dear community, dear beautiful community, dear friends on the path. Today is the 1st of August in the year 2025, and we are on our last day of the summer retreat, the last day of the 3rd week, and the last day of the summer retreat. And we are now sitting together in the still water meditation hall of the Upper Hamlet. Time flies. It's already the end. Some of you have been here from the beginning or even before the summer retreat, the volunteers. And some of you have been here just for a week. And by now, we hope you have learned what you need to learn. You have learned tools to help you to cultivate joy and happiness, tools to help you embrace and take care of the pain and suffering. All these tools that we have learned this week are really to help us be in the present moment, dwelling deeply in the present moment. They are all helping us to arrive here and now. So when you go back home, wherever you go, you can create more Dharma doors, more tools, anything possible that helps you to arrive in the moment, here and now, in your body. Because everything is possible in the present moment. We learned that the present moment the only moment that life really exists. And the present moment contains the past. So for us to heal the past, it's important to arrive in the present moment, because the past is imprinted in every cell of our body, in every experience we have. So we don't need to run back to the past. A tendency to always ruminate and dwell in the past. Because the more we ruminate and dwell in the past, the more we lose touch with the past. Because those are just ideas. We learned about perceptions, right? Those are just perceptions. It's in the present moment that we can truly, fully touch the past and heal the past. But also in the present moment, we can touch the future already. Because the future is made of the present moment. So how do we want the future to be? Well, it's up to us in this very moment, how we are living our life. So the past and the future are here and now. So that's why the present moment is so important. We've learned tools to tackle problems, to deal with issues we have, problems we have. This week I've heard all sorts of problems. Problems such as, like suffering that comes from grief, loss. Problems with children. How to be a parent. How to raise our children. There are problems which are so much bigger than we can imagine, such as the climate crisis, or even the wars that are happening here and there at this moment. So the tools that we've learned also help us dealing with these different issues. But also we learn tools to live joyfully and happily. I think most of us are really seeking for a path of joy and happiness. And that's really essential for our well-being. If we come to the practice and we cannot touch joy and happiness, then that practice is not for us. And if we haven't tasted joy and happiness with the practices we learned, maybe we haven't really done it. We think we're practicing, but we're not actually practicing. We've been dwelling in our head and not on our heart. How many of you have experienced some degree of peace, joy, happiness, healing, transformation? We all have. Great. Thank you. I think that's what brought us back again and again to the practice, and again to Plum Village. Because we know that these tools, these practices work. But eventually, we want to respond to big questions, ultimate questions. Like, who am I? What am I doing here in this human existence? If anyone has questions like that? Yeah. Young and not so young. I think not so young people like me, I think we really need to sit with these kind of questions like, what am I doing here? Where am I coming from? I've been asking that questions a lot to the babies that I've seen this week. They're just so adorable and so new to the world. And like, where are you coming from? Like, tell me. I forgot. We forgot where we're coming from. And it's good to ask that questions. Actually, when you ask this baby, where are you coming from? Actually, that's questions that we are asking ourselves, like, where am I coming from? Where will I go after I die? Like, what's there after death? Big questions, right? We can ask these babies. They know. So these are the kind of questions that we need to make time to ask, because once we find an answers to these questions, then the problems we have on our daily basis will no longer be problems. The reason we have these problems, like these problems that I just mentioned, that I've heard during this week, because we don't have answers to these questions. Like, we don't know who we are. We think we know who we are, but ultimately, we don't. So these questions are good. They're keys. And for us to deal with like these daily problems and issues we have in our life, we want to touch deeply these questions, answers to these questions, because they are the keys, they are doors to help us, resolve these issues. So yesterday in my Dharma sharing group, wow, the kind of issues that came out was like, whew. I don't think any of us could really respond to these questions. They're like really big questions. And I think these issues that people had would not become these big issues if we really know the answers to these questions. Who am I? Where am I coming from? What happened to me when my body is no longer here? So recently, 10 days before this retreat, we had a very unfortunate accident, and one of our sister in the new Hamlet had passed away, a young sister. And it was devastating for us in the new Hamlet, especially. Very painful. We had like sessions of like deep listening to one another. We were holding each other. And thanks to the deep listening and the love and the presence of the community, we were able to heal this pain. They're still there, but they're not as big as initially. And I think the presence of everyone really helped. The joy that we have witnessed and experienced with having the children, the young people here, and everyone really helped to balance with the pain that we went through as a community. And I realized, wow, just having like the things that I really don't know and none of us know, and I will never be able to know. One, I don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes or 10 minutes, next day, next month. I mean, that was how it happened. Just click. 5 minutes later, that sister was no longer there. So, like, next 5 minutes, I may not even be here. Then next 5 minutes, you'll be witnessing something if I'm not here, right? But that's what I experienced. It's like the future we cannot really see. Like there's this curtain. What I can only say is that the present moment is the only moment there is for me right now. And I can live that moment well. It's within my power to really savor that moment, the present moment deeply, because I don't know what's going to happen next, in the next 5 minutes. The other unknown for me is, I don't know where that sister is right now. Like her parents came and was like, where's my daughter? Well, I don't know. None of us know. We think she's there, but we don't know. They're all just our ideas, right? For one thing we know is that, well, she's in us. Like her consciousness becomes a part of our consciousness. And we continue that, her aspiration. So some of our sisters who were deeply in pain, witnessing the passing away of their sister without being able to do anything, what they made this vow that they're going to continue her aspiration of a monastic, like going until the end of their life for themselves and for her. And knock on wood, that will be it. That will be the aspiration that will, carry them forward through all the challenges and difficulties as a monastic on this path. And yeah, the Sangha was extremely helpful. Friends on the path were there and were embracing the suffering that we went through as a community, as individuals. And the Sangha was there for her. We were there until she went into the crematory. And then life just goes on. And what I realize is that our path, even though I'm in the midst of the community, loving community, present, loving, kind, supportive, eventually it will be a really solitary journey. Yeah, it will be like that for all of us. When we are alive and having the community around us, and that's a great fortune for us to have this community, but we need to keep in mind that at the end of the day, it's a really solitary journey. And that now that I have the community, I'm taking in, taking in as much as I can, kind of to build up this reservoir of peace and love and strength, clarity of mind, so that when I have to begin to continue this journey on my own, like the sister has, that the Sangha in me will continue to shine light for me. So let us enjoy the sound of the bell and enjoy the presence of the community sitting around us. And her passion had been about mindfulness, like a wake-up call for a lot of us in the community, just to appreciate being alive and to have this body. You know, like a lot of us, really so alienated from the body. We are disembodied. So we're not really there to really savor the fact that we are alive with this body as a wonder, with all our senses, intact. Our senses that are witnessing all the wonders and beauties that are unfolding in every moment. So I don't know if my sister is able to feel the sun on her cheeks, or listening to the laughter of the children, or the wind that goes through the leaves, creating this music, this rustling of the leaves, the songs of birds. But I can. And so I want to be able to really experience life deeply before I no longer be able to, in the next 5 minutes, the next 10 minutes. And so these unknowns, I don't think I will be able to know it in my lifetime while living. But there is something that is so close and yet for some of us so unknown. You know what they are? Our body and our mind. It's right here. And yet it's so distant because we have been so disembodied. We've been so living up here. Some of us lose touch with feelings and sensations in the body. So today, what I want to talk about is how can we come in touch with our body and mind deeply in the present moment Because like the children learned, it's really understanding deeply the roots of our body and mind that help us open doors and touch our ultimate reality. And so, this unknown helped me to see that the areas in my body and my mind that I hardly ever think about or reflected on. How many of us really have the time to reflect on our body and mind, our aggregates? So let me talk about the 5 aggregates. What are the 5 aggregates? What are our mind, body, and mind made of? So let us break down body and mind into 5 different rivers so that we can just focus on one at a time. So we are made of these 5 elements. Form the physical body, feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. We have touched on these elements during the week in the last 2 Dharma talks by Brother Fablin and Sister Nghiem. And let's start with the body. The body is a wonder. It is within this body that everything is possible. Healing is possible, transformation is possible, happiness is possible, awakening is possible. How many of us really dislike our body? Yeah, some hands. But this is an invitation for us to really go back and breathe, smile, and accept our body as it is. No matter what it is. It's a wonder to still have our senses intact and to be able to experience the world through our senses. That's a wonder. My sister will never experience that again, at least in the form that she was. When we go back to the body and practice with the body, being aware of the breath, feeling these sensations on the body. These are just awareness of these things, awareness of our heart. They help us to be here now. They bring body and mind together. And that's preliminary, to be here now. And the body is a vessel to help us enter the present moment and touch the present moment deeply. And when we touch the present moment deeply, touch our body deeply, we discover our ancestors. Like every cell of our body contains our ancestors. Well, this evening we have a chance to celebrate and honor our ancestors, our closest ancestors, our mother and our father. They are there also. But we have like this whole lineage of people. From the very, as far as back as we can, we know, from our very primal ancestors, and even beyond, that they are all here in our body. And that's our roots. Just like these trees that have their roots dug down into the ground. These roots are so important for the nourishment of these trees. Our ancestors are our roots. And we need to be able to recognize the ancestors in us so that we can receive this new nutriment for our body and for our mind. And what we realize is that we are a continuation of our parents, of our ancestors, whether we like it or not. Some of us have issues with our parents, with our ancestors, like not wanting to accept our parents. And the more we are unable to accept our parents, the more we are alienated with ourselves, because we have lost roots, our connection. So their joy, their suffering, their happiness, their life experiences has become a part of us. Like their suffering that we can't really pinpoint what they may be, a transmission, intergenerational transmission. Like suffering also, intergenerational traumas or suffering. And when we know our ancestors, then we can understand why we are the way we are. And in this body, we can come in touch with nature because we are a part of nature. We contain the four great elements. We contain the fire, the sun, the fire that energizes us, the earth, the great Mother Earth underneath us. A large part of our body contains the earth. We are an extension of Mother Earth. And I'm just so happy to hear the word Mother Earth, because she is truly our mother. She has brought us into life, and then she will be there to take us back. Without discrimination, without conditions. We contain water, at least 75%, if not more. Water as rivers that are circulating in our veins. And we are the air also. So we are nature. We are a part of nature. And nature is in us. So that's another part, really important element for our happiness, our well-being, is taking roots in these elements in nature as source of nourishment. But when we come in touch with nature deeply, we realize that we cannot be without nature, and we cannot be without our ancestors. We are made of countless elements. We are of the nature of interconnectedness with all these. It's like having like these invisible strings that's attached to all these things. We may not see it, but they're there. And when we cut off these connections, that's when we feel lonely, isolated, cut off, disembodied. And that's when we set ourselves up for suffering. Coming in touch with our body deeply helps us to come in touch with our true realities, our true nature deeply. So let us listen to one sound of the bell to bring that insight in, to really feel our ancestors in us, to really feel nature as being a part of who we are. And also in this very body we have, we come in touch with our mind. Mind, our mental, energetic entity. We cannot experience our mind without this body. So if you have not had a good relationship with your body, I think this is where we need to start. Making friends with our body, accepting our body as it is. Because this body, it contains everything there is. And it is only with this body also that we can really touch our true nature, touch our mind, we touch awakening. So the feeling, perception, mental formation, consciousness are mental entities. They're energies. So let me talk about the mind a little bit before we go into the feeling and perceptions and mental formations. So I'm going to touch on consciousness. And we've had already learned about consciousness. We have learned about the model of the mind, right? In the first Dharma talk. A model of the mind with different layers. And each one of these layers play a function of the mind. And when we talk about consciousness, we actually talk about store consciousness. And as the word implies, that store consciousness means it's a root. That it's store, that preserve, holds, and stores all kinds of seeds. A whole spectrum of seeds, from the most positive to the most negative. Any seeds that we have ever received in our lifetime, in our ancestors' lifetime, and even beyond our ancestors' lifetime, even before our primal ancestors, that they are all in here. Not just my own store consciousness, but it's a collective consciousness of every single thing and everyone that we have ever run across or our ancestors have ever run across. So in other words, this is my store consciousness, but every one of you who are here are really also contributing to this consciousness, store consciousness as well. Our shared collective consciousness. And we say that everything is manifested from the store consciousness. This body is also manifested from the store consciousness. That's hard to believe, right? Well, a lot of what we say will be difficult to believe because it's not about belief. It's about looking deeply. It's about being in the present moment so that we can see. Because mindfulness, it's really about being in the present moment. Because it is in the present moment that we see everything that's unfolding. And not just see this unfolding, but we also see deeply the roots. Just like looking at a tree, deeply, we also see the roots of the tree. Being in the present moment helps us to see ourselves deeply, our true nature. Because our true nature is always there, revealing in every moment. But we fail to see it because we're so busy here. And all the issues we have in our daily life. When we look at the trees and we understand deeply the nature of the tree, well, our nature is like that, like the tree. Nature of interbeing, nature of interconnectedness. We cannot exist in isolation, just like trees cannot exist in isolations. So, feeling, perception, mental formations are all in here as seeds, mental entities. We cannot really see store consciousness, but we see their manifestation, their signs in feeling, perception, and mental formation, right? Because when they appear or they manifest on our body. It's like, okay, so feeling of sadness, that's a mental formation, by the way. Fear, that's another mental formation. Anger, that's another mental formation. Or even love, that's another mental formation. Well, when we experience them on our body. Here, everywhere. And so the body is so important. It's grounded in the present, in our body, that we're able to recognize like feeling, perceptions, mental formations. And see where they're coming from. See their roots. It's the seeing, which is insight, understanding, that help to transform. That's what we learn. Mindfulness leads to concentration, leads to insight. And the insight is like a light that we bring in that allow us to see things as it is, as they are. So a whole spectrum of seeds in here. So everything that we have received from our ancestors, joy, happiness, suffering, traumas, they all they are kept in here, in the depths of our being. Where's store consciousness? Where is store consciousness? Someone pointed here. Is that where store consciousness is? Someone pointed here. Someone did this. I whole body. True, partly true. Yes, someone did this also, which is the environment is also manifestation of store consciousness. So store consciousness is not just here, but here as well. What does that say? That the environment is also store consciousness. The environment is a manifestation of my store consciousness. So the environment that we are in, with all the suffering, all the difficulties, all the challenges, are not necessarily out here. They are really manifestation of our store consciousness. Does that make sense? Do you get that? So the body is a place to go to. So we learn how to take care of our feelings. We learn that there are 3 kinds of feelings. There are pleasant feeling, joyful, pleasant, well-being, the kind of feeling that we run to. And there are the unpleasant feeling, discomfort, dis-ease, things that we stay away from, we run away from. And there are the neutral feeling, which are, for some of us, neutral feeling, my sister talked about the non-toothache, the non-toothache experience, that most of us don't have a toothache, and that's a neutral experience. But when it becomes painful, that we know, it's a really unpleasant feeling. But we know that when we don't have this unpleasant feeling anymore, then it's a pleasant feeling, right? And yet, most of us really take this as neutral, kind of like a boring kind of experience. So when we don't have the excitement of the pleasure or suffering, that most of us really have neutral. I think in our day, most of the time, it's a neutral experience, right? And some of us really see that as boring. We need to go and find excitement. But actually, those neutral experiences, if we bring awareness to them, they become really pleasant experience. Like that non-toothache. And a lot of non-toothache we have in our life. It's great. It's important to go to those neutral experiences because they may be a source of nutriment, source of joy and happiness. Joy, happiness is not out there in front of us that we have to chase after. It's here, in ourselves, in our environment. There are loads of them. I want to talk about perception. My sister and brother have talked about perception already. So What are perceptions? So they said that 99%, I mean, not them, but the Buddha had said, 99% of our perceptions are wrong perceptions. And because they are wrong perceptions, that's why they create a lot of suffering for us. But my question is, well, if I know that 99% of my perceptions are wrong and that they're creating so much suffering, then why am I not wanting to let them go? Like, can I just let them go and I'll be like free of suffering and free of wrong perception? Anybody ever wondered that? Yeah, it's like, well, if they're so bad, if they're like creating so much suffering, why can't I just let them go and be problem-free? So let us listen to one sound of the bell to really bring that in. Ask our store consciousness. It's like, if I know you're a wrong perception, and then I know you're the cause of my suffering, why am I not able to like let them go, let you go? So, in the sutras that the Buddha had given, there are countless sutras on the 5 aggregates. And, our teacher talked a lot about the 5 aggregates as well. And somehow I wanted to understand my 5 aggregates. And yet I've never really made the time like to sit down and face my 5 aggregates. So one rain retreat, I decided I'm going to do that. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to get to the bottom of the 5 aggregates. Why is it so important? Why is the Buddha talking over and over again about the 5 aggregates? And yet, it's one of those things that so obvious and yet so unknown to me. I mean, I think I know, but I don't really know. We think we know our body and mind so well, but really? For sure? How many of you think you know your body and mind so well? Thank you for being honest. And so, okay, so I got, like body easy. I can touch, I can feel. Feeling easy because I can feel it on the body. And I've been working like my whole life as a nun on handling my feelings, like embracing, taking care. But when it comes to perception, I was in the dark. Like, I couldn't even pinpoint to like what perception is. It took me like a whole month. Okay, we had only 3 months during the rain retreat, and that one whole month was just focusing on like feeling. And every time I come out of the sitting, I'm like, oh dear, again, like still in the clouds. And one day I realized that my perceptions are really these stories, these narratives I have in my head, like all the time. It's there, and I didn't realize that it's there. Perceptions are really ideas I have in my head about myself, about everything. Notions I have. Which means that for most of us, we are living, flowing in perception because most of us are living, in our stories, with these narratives, with these ideas and notions in our head all the time. So we are carrying perceptions in every moment of our body, living with perceptions, that everything is really a perception. We have perceptions about everything, about ourselves, about our beloved ones. What happened is that perceptions, that's a little bit of reality, a whole lot of it, 99% of it, are just construction of the mind-made. But what made it really difficult to touch and pinpoint is because it's my reality. It's like that's my reality. How can it be a perception when it's like my reality? But it is perception. How can I really see that this perception, 90% of my perceptions are wrong when it's my reality? How many of us think that 99% of my perceptions are right? Yeah, I do. I know. So 99% of my perception are mind-made. Made by all the experiences that I've gone through, my ancestors have gone through, my education, my background, their society, my society history, all these elements that are affecting my perception of reality and of myself. And a lot of it is also conditioning that we have never questioned. I'm conditioned to be like this and this and this as a woman, or this and this and this as a man, or this and this and this as an Asian. All conditionings that we never really question because it is our reality. What would I be without this reality? I define myself with this reality, with these perceptions. We define ourselves as who we are with these perceptions we have, with these realities, with this conditioning. That's why it made it so difficult to really touch perception. But as I sat there and just realizing, oh my gosh, these are my perceptions right now. I touch this thing really deep down in me that really dictates my perception. And you know what it is? Anybody? It has to do with consciousness. And it's a part of our consciousness. And it's called the manas. So what is a manas? Manas is born from a seed of delusion, ignorance. And it comes up like a wave from the ocean, and then it comes back down, and then it holds on to that part of consciousness, part of the stored consciousness, and say, you are my beloved. I need to take care of you. I need to protect you. And manas it's responsible for the idea of a self, ego. Manas is a mind of discrimination. This is me and that's not me. This belongs to me, that doesn't belong to me. And well, to be fair with manas, it's really a survival instinct. It safeguards us. You know, when we put our hand on something that's burning, then manas knows to take it away because that's harmful. You know, last week when I stepped on a thorn, a really deep thorn, immediately, you know, my leg, my foot, you know, it's removed. That's part of manas. Well, manas doesn't like suffering. Mana doesn't like anything that's painful and unpleasant. So what it does is that it would do everything possible to seek pleasure, joy, seeks good experiences. It seeks pleasure without knowing moderation. So when it comes to food, for example, delicious food, well, it would just indulge itself until it can't take anymore. And too much of good food can cause suffering, right? Yeah. Well, that's just one example. Well, it would seek pleasure and it would just turn away, like avoid pain and suffering. Like it would just run away without even really looking back and see, wait, is there any goodness to the suffering? What is the suffering there for? So it does not know the goodness of suffering because suffering is good. You know, most of us are here because we have suffered, right? It's the suffering that brought us on to this spiritual path. A path to heal ourselves. A path to question who we are and why we are in this human existence. Well, what I found is that manas is based on this. My perception is based on manas. Because when it's based on a deluded mind, then whatever that it's experiencing is delusion. And yet, it's a reality. It's a deluded reality. And yet, 99% of the time, I think that's insight. That's true. True reality. So there are 4 deep-seated wrong perceptions that the Buddha addressed. First one, that we are permanent. The world is permanent. We know it's impermanent, right? Intellectually. But in reality, there's this belief that it's permanent. So one of the exercises, the last 4 exercises of mindful breathing that the Buddha had taught is about contemplating on impermanence. Addressing this perception we have about reality and about ourselves. Impermanence is reality. our reality and reality of everything there is. And a lot of us understand impermanence up here. It hasn't downloaded into manas, into our heart. And that's what the contemplation, that's what it does. It helps us to download that insight to manas, so that's a way for us to educate manas, to bring in the light of impermanence. The other one is, well, when we talk about impermanent, it's also non-self, which is interbeing, interconnectedness. Impermanence is when we look at reality from the perspective of time. Things are changing all the time. Time is an arrow that keeps moving constantly forward. And non-self is looking at reality from the perspective of space, that nothing can exist by itself, that it needs everything there are, to make this as it is. Manas doesn't get that. So the contemplation is to download that insight of non-self. The third one is that these things here, my children, my mom and dad, my prestige, my money, my house, they do not define who I am. They're not worthy for me to crave for, because they're not me. At the end of the day, it will be a solitary journey for me without all these things. And sometimes, not knowing that, we cling on to these things and we cannot go. We cannot let go. The suffering comes when we cannot let go, when we are holding. We need to let go of these things. They're there, useful. Yes, we need them. We need a house. But when we identify, I am this house, I am this person, that person, for me to be worthy, for me to be who I am, then we're setting ourselves up for suffering, because that person's not going to be there. That house that seems so solid, well, we've seen like floods, right, that had carried houses down these rivers and these streams, these flash water. They don't define who I am. So if they don't define who I am, then what do I rely on to define who I am? So, as part of my preparation for my old age, so I've been watching my elder sisters, in their late 70s and 80s. And I'm taking out like lessons, kind of reminders, like bell of mindfulness, wake-up calls. And one of those things that I remind myself is that I need to focus on myself as, define myself as being. Like a being, like a human being, not a human doing. Like being peace, being loving, being present, being kind. Not doing this, doing that. Doing, say, I am taking care, say you are taking care of your children. That's your doing. You define them as who you are. This work as a mother, that's who you are. Well, maybe one day they're no longer there. They're grown up, they move away, they leave you an empty nest. That's going to be a lot of suffering. And I know some of you are going through that empty nest. I've heard. And it's created a lot of suffering, wobbly, because we're losing this that had defined us, who we are. And we suffer. So we need to define ourselves as being, not as doing. And so these things don't really define me. What defines me, at least for the time being? My actions of body, speech, and mind. Actions, body, speech, what I say, mind, what I think. Those things defines me because those things are my signatures of who I am. And so when I practice mindfulness and recognize them, I am helping my actions of body, speech, and mind go in line with the 5 trainings so that it leads to happiness. It's a path of happiness, a path of freedom, really, path of awakening, the 5 trainings. How many of you have taken the trainings this morning? We had so many people in the new Hamlet this morning. Yeah. I know we are running out of time. Okay. So downloading the one last thing is that we have a perception of a limited lifespan, that we're born this day and we're going to die this day. But actually, when we look deeply, there's no birth, no death. We're just continuations. We're continuing. Our ancestors and our children will continue us. We're just changing a different form. Because at some point, this body no longer serves us. And that is good to let it go when the time comes. Why do we want to hold on to a form that's no longer serving us? It's because we are afraid that it will become nothing after we let go of this form. But when we understand that our nature is the nature of interbeing, well, there's no need to be afraid. So non-fear can only be realized when we touch into our nature of who we are, our nature of interconnectedness, of interbeing. And so it's important to download these insights into manas. And a question that I always ask myself is, what is my manas running away from? What is my manas running away from? And that's not really for me to know, where it is running. It's actually an invitation for me to look back into my body and mind to see, is there pain in here? Like, is there discomfort that manas doesn't want to face? So it's running away. So that's an invitation for you. Like, where's your manas? What is your manas running away from? Invitation for you to come back to your body, come back to your mind to see any discomfort, any pain, any restlessness, because you may not know it, we may not know it intellectually, we may not feel it and experience it. Maybe we're good at, keeping it at bay, but manas knows. And manas is exiting really quickly, with all these things in our head, stories about the past, future, even stories that are not really relevant to our well-being. Like, I found most of my thinking that's just absolutely useless. It has nothing to do with me. Movies that I watched years ago are like playing, replaying, that kind of thing. So this contemplation is to bring the light in here. Because once this is transformed, manas is transformed, it becomes the wisdom of non-discrimination. It does not discriminate me and you as separate entities anymore. It sees this continuum, this oneness of everything there is. And when we have this oneness of everything there is, fear is not there anymore. We experience non-fear. And like these daily experience and issues and suffering are no longer suffering. They're just invitations for us to see what's there for me to work with. The things I need to work with. The things for me to take care and embrace. The mud that's there that I need to embrace. And when I see that they're mud, for me to take care and to learn from, well, I become an opportunist. I'm not a victim anymore of these things. And it's because I am no longer a victim of like these difficulties and suffering that comes from, like daily living. Well, I'm free. They're there. They may be bringing up things, but I'm there, smiling, breathing, accepting, embracing, knowing. It's you, Manas. I know it's you. You and your discriminative mind. So here is our daily. So let me just a conclusion, really a summary of the talk. So this is our daily experience, our life, our world. When there's pain and suffering, joy and happiness, the mud here, the lotuses. Fears, pain, all here. But when I touch deeply this reality, which is called the historical dimension, when there's birth and death, when I touch the historical deeply, I begin to see interconnectedness. I begin to see impermanence. I begin to see my non-selfness. I begin to see I'm part of everything there is. So these are contemplations, impermanence, non-self. Those are keys. Those are Dharma doors that help us to experience a different kind of reality. A reality where there's no fear. Reality there is utmost joy and happiness. A reality where there's no birth, no death. There is just continuation. That's called Nirvana, right? No birth, no death. Everything we witness are just charade. They're just opportunities. Opportunity for us to touch our ultimate reality. The big H, happiness, freedom, which are really Nirvana. So Nirvana is actually the absence of idea, concepts, narrative, story, the absence of perception. So when I am no longer this perception, then what am I? Well, if I'm no longer this perception, I'm Nirvana. Because Nirvana is the absence of perceptions, ideas, notions, views. Because I touch reality. But when you do this, there's this set. We think that there is this realm, and then we have to do something to get to the other realm. Well, this is only for us to really have a visual image to understand. Because in reality, it's like this. The mud is here, but lotuses are here also. The suffering is here, but Nirvana is also here. In this reality, in this reality, in this reality, in this body, in this lifetime. It's not something up there. It's here, in this very moment. The present moment contains all of this. The present moment contains Nirvana, great happiness, great freedom. If only we can stay and welcome them all. So thank you so much. I hope this is a jewel that you can take to bring home. Because it is only with this jewel of insight that we can be free of all these daily suffering and pain. It's a way out. And the way out is here now, to experience all this in order to touch. Experience them with mindfulness, concentration, insight, in order to taste and make Nirvana, great happiness, great freedom, our reality. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here with us during this week, and I hope that wasn't out of reach for you, because it's really important for you to take with you. Thank you. So let us enjoy the sound of the bell, remembering that we are still here in the embrace of the Sangha, that the bell is still there to resonate into our core, to remind us of our truth, of who we really are.